The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, planets, and species. To most, Earth was just another small, insignificant world in a far-off corner of the universe. The great powers of the galaxy had been around for centuries, each one stronger and more advanced than the next. Earth, they thought, was too young, too weak to ever pose a real threat. They laughed at it. For years, the Galactic Command, a powerful alliance of alien races, had ignored humanity's warnings. Earth had tried to reach out, to send messages, hoping someone would listen. The messages were clear. We are stronger than you think. Don't underestimate us. But they were met with mockery. The command dismissed Earth's efforts, believing that humans were nothing more than a species with primitive technology and no real power. They were wrong. As the years passed, Earth continued to grow. Humans, stubborn and resilient, had been quietly building their strength. They weren't content to stay in their corner of the galaxy, hiding. They were learning, evolving, and preparing. But the rest of the galaxy didn't notice. Why would they? Earth was still so small, so insignificant compared to the great empires of the galaxy. Yet, as Earth's technology grew, so did its power. Slowly, but surely, humans began to unlock secrets that other species had long since forgotten. Their scientists were discovering new forms of energy, advanced weaponry, and strategies that could change the course of a war. But these discoveries were kept hidden. The rest of the galaxy had no idea what Earth was capable of. And so, Earth sent its warning again, this time louder, more urgent. You've made a mistake. We are not weak. We will rise. The message was sent to every major race in the galaxy, including the Galactic Command. It was meant to show them that humanity was no longer to be ignored. But again, the command laughed. They had bigger problems, more pressing concerns. They didn't take Earth seriously. The Galactic Command's leaders were too busy with their own politics, fighting each other for power. They had no time for a minor species like humans. The command was focused on maintaining control over the galaxy, expanding its influence, and crushing any rebellion. They were sure that no small planet, especially one so far away, could ever stand up to them. But Earth was different. Humans had always been known for their ability to adapt, to overcome, and to survive. They had fought wars, endured hardships, and rebuilt their world more times than they could count. They were a species that could not be underestimated, and they were finally ready to show the galaxy what they could do. On Earth, a small group of scientists and military leaders had been working quietly for years, hidden from the rest of the world. They were building something. They had developed a new kind of technology, one that was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a force, a power that could change the fate of entire worlds. But the Galactic Command didn't know any of this. They were too focused on their own affairs, too confident in their own superiority. They thought Earth's warnings were nothing more than the desperate cries of a weaker species, and so they ignored them. But the humans didn't give up. They didn't stop sending their warnings, even when they knew no one was listening. They knew that one day the galaxy would have to face the consequences of their arrogance. Earth had been ignored for too long, and soon it would be too late for the Galactic Command to turn back. The first signs of Earth's power came in the form of strange, mysterious signals. These signals were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. At first, they were dismissed as random noise, but then they started to grow stronger, more precise. The Galactic Command couldn't ignore them any longer. Something was happening on Earth, something they hadn't expected. The signals were warnings, but by then, it was already too late. The command began to take notice, but it was already too late. Earth had been quietly preparing, gathering strength, building weapons, and creating alliances. What the galaxy didn't realize was that Earth had been watching them just as closely. They had learned everything they needed to know about the powerful empires and the Galactic Command. They had studied their weaknesses, their strengths, and their habits. The galaxy, so full of pride, had ignored the warnings for too long. Earth wasn't weak. It wasn't small. It was ready. But the rest of the galaxy would find that out the hard way. The day was coming when the Galactic Command would regret ignoring Earth's warnings, and when that day arrived, it would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The galaxy was a machine of power, running smoothly for centuries. Each race played its part. Each planet knew its place. Yet there was one thing the galaxy's great leaders never considered. What if someone outside their control started to challenge everything they knew? What if a small, seemingly insignificant planet was quietly building a force they could not even imagine? Earth's leaders knew that the rest of the galaxy had underestimated them. They had always believed they were too young, too small to make a real difference. But the humans weren't content to play by the rules set by others. They knew that if they were ever going to rise, they had to do it on their own terms. For years, Earth's top scientists and military experts had been working together in secret, developing a new kind of technology. At first, it was nothing more than whispers. The scientists had discovered something new, something that could change the way they looked at the universe. It wasn't just a new weapon. It wasn't even just a new ship. It was something that could turn the tide of power in the galaxy. This new technology was not just about fighting. It was about shifting the very balance of power. The way they saw things, humanity didn't need to fight with brute strength. They had found a way to be unpredictable, to surprise the mightiest forces in the galaxy. As Earth's technological advancements grew, so did the pressure on its leaders. They knew they had to be careful. One wrong move, one mistake, and the galaxy would crush them before they even had a chance to rise. But they also knew that waiting was no longer an option. The galaxy would never respect them until they proved their worth. That's when they made their move. Without warning, a new fleet of ships appeared. Unlike anything anyone had seen before, these ships were small, sleek, and incredibly fast. At first, the galaxy thought they were just another minor military exercise from a distant world. They were wrong. This new fleet wasn't here to fight in the traditional way. They didn't aim to destroy planets or wipe out fleets. Instead, they moved quickly, disappearing into the vastness of space, leaving no trace. It was as if they were ghosts, slipping past enemy lines unnoticed. But this ghost fleet wasn't just about stealth. It was about sending a message. Earth was ready. The first mission of this fleet was simple but powerful: to infiltrate the heart of the galaxy's power, the galactic capital. No one had ever thought Earth capable of such a bold move. The fleet entered the capital's space undetected, bypassing every defense system with ease. In those quiet moments, as Earth's ships silently moved through the heart of the galaxy's great powers had no idea what was happening. They had no idea who was right under their noses. The humans didn't waste time. They didn't engage in traditional battles. Instead, they carried out calculated strikes, disabling key communication systems, cutting off vital supplies, and disrupting the flow of information. The Galactic Command, still confident in their superiority, didn't know what was happening. All they knew was that their systems were failing, their networks were down, and they had no explanation. As the fleet pulled back, leaving no trace, the humans knew they had achieved something far greater than a mere attack. They had shown the galaxy that they could strike at its heart and disappear without a trace. They had proven that Earth was no longer just a backwater planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The news of the attack spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, races and governments scrambled to understand how Earth had pulled off such a feat. The Galactic Command, once so confident, now found themselves questioning everything they had known. Was this an isolated incident, or was it a sign of something more? Had they truly been blind to Earth's potential? The humans had made their point. The galaxy had ignored their warnings for far too long. Now the balance of power was shifting, slowly but surely. What had once seemed like a joke, a threat with no real power behind it, was now a reality. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a force, a silent storm gathering strength. The galaxy had made a critical mistake, and it was only a matter of time before they would have to pay for it. The Galactic Command knew they had to act fast, but they were already too late. Earth had already shown them what they were capable of. The rest of the galaxy would soon find out just how much humanity had grown, how much they had changed. And the worst part, they would realize that this was only the beginning. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, as the first whispers of Earth's rise spread, no one dared to question it anymore. The era of Earth's silence was over. The galaxy would never be the same again. And the Galactic Command would soon realize just how badly they had underestimated humanity. As the days passed, whispers about Earth's unexpected movements began to circulate throughout the galaxy. What had once seemed like an isolated event, a strange occurrence no one could explain, was beginning to take shape into something much larger. Earth was no longer just a planet sending warnings into the void. It had become a force that could no longer be ignored. The Galactic Command, still reeling from the initial shock, tried to assure the galaxy that the incident was merely an anomaly, that it was nothing more than a fluke. But deep down, they knew the truth. The messages from Earth were becoming clearer, and with each passing day, they became more urgent. The silence from Earth's leaders had been broken. The galaxy could no longer deny that humanity had something powerful, something mysterious at its disposal. The command tried to contain the rising panic. They reinforced their defenses, increased surveillance across the galaxy, and began to search for any trace of the mysterious fleet that had caused so much chaos. But Earth was playing a game they didn't understand, a game of patience, precision, and quiet strength. Humanity's response was not to engage in open conflict. They didn't need to. Earth's new approach was strategic and intelligent, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The humans had learned how to move through the galaxy without leaving a trace. They were masters of the shadows now, slipping in and out of systems, always staying one step ahead. The Galactic Command tried to focus on their military might, gathering fleets and preparing to face Earth head-on, but the humans weren't interested in conventional war. Instead of launching a massive assault, Earth's leaders focused on something much more effective, disrupting the very systems that kept the galaxy in power. Earth's ships, small yet highly advanced, began to appear at the edges of key spaceports, research stations, and trade routes. They didn't fire a single shot. They didn't need to. Instead, they deployed powerful technology designed to confuse, delay, and disrupt. The entire galaxy began to feel the effects of this new form of warfare. It was like an invisible hand was slowly tightening its grip, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Trade routes that once flowed freely now faced constant delays, as ships carrying supplies were mysteriously rerouted, their destinations lost in a web of shifting coordinates. Research stations that had once been on the cutting edge of galactic knowledge suddenly found their data scrambled, their communication lines severed. The entire galaxy, once so interconnected, was starting to feel the weight of uncertainty. And through it all, Earth's fleet remained elusive, their ships vanishing before they could be tracked, their tactics never fully understood. They had become the shadows that moved between the stars, always watching, always waiting for the right moment to strike. The Galactic Command found itself caught in a dilemma. They couldn't ignore the problem anymore. The threat was real, and it was coming from a place they hadn't expected. The galaxy's greatest powers had assumed that Earth was just a blip, a weak and primitive world with no real strength. But now, Earth had turned the tables. They were no longer just a small planet to be overlooked. They had become the unseen force that was disrupting everything. The command tried to call for reinforcements, to rally the galaxy's most powerful fleets. But even as they prepared, Earth was already a step ahead. The humans knew that they didn't need to take the fight to the battlefield. Their true strength lay in their ability to influence, to control, to shift the balance of power from the shadows. Across the galaxy, the once confident empires were starting to feel the pressure. Leaders who had dismissed Earth's warnings now found themselves questioning their own security. Was their technology truly safe? Was their economy as stable as they had thought? Was their military invincible? What Earth had done was not just about force. It was about showing the galaxy that power could be wielded in ways they had never imagined. The humans had discovered a new kind of influence, one that didn't rely on armies or planets. It was a quiet revolution, a battle fought in silence, in the corridors of information, and in the subtle shifts of the stars themselves. The command's reaction was swift. They began to rally the greatest minds in the galaxy to try and uncover the secret behind Earth's success. What was this new technology? What made it so powerful? And most importantly, how could they stop it? But no answers came. The humans had made sure of that. Every lead they followed turned cold. Every trace they found led them to dead ends. It was as if Earth had mastered the art of remaining hidden, always a step ahead of their would-be pursuers. At the same time, Earth continued to send its messages, not with force, but with undeniable presence. "We are here," they said. "We have been here, and you will not ignore us any longer." The galaxy could not deny it anymore. Earth was not a weak, insignificant planet. It was a power in the making, and no matter how hard they tried, the command could not stop it. As the mysterious fleet continued its operations, the galaxy's leaders began to realize something they had never thought possible. Earth was in control, and they had no idea how to stop it. The tension in the galaxy had been building for months. Earth, once dismissed as a weak and insignificant planet, had now become a mystery no one could ignore. The Galactic Command, shaken by the unexplained disruptions, was beginning to feel the weight of their previous arrogance. They had underestimated Earth, laughed off its warnings, and now they were facing the consequences of that mistake. The command, desperate to regain control, started to gather its most brilliant minds, scientists, strategists, and military commanders from across the galaxy. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. Earth's tactics were unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't about large battles or full-scale confrontations. Earth's power was more subtle, more calculated. Every move made by humanity seemed to be carefully planned, and every move was a step closer to disrupting the entire galaxy. The command's response was swift. They began to coordinate an extensive network of spies, hoping to uncover Earth's secrets. But as much as they tried, they couldn't get close. Earth's operations were shrouded in mystery. There was no sign of the fleet that had once infiltrated the galactic capital. No traces of the ships that had caused so much havoc. Earth had proven itself to be a master of misdirection. It wasn't just their technology that was advanced. It was their way of thinking. Earth's leaders were playing a long game, carefully positioning themselves to take advantage of the smallest weaknesses in the galaxy's systems. They didn't need to overpower their enemies. They simply needed to outsmart them. And as the command searched for clues, it became painfully clear that they were not the ones in control. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Command, there was a sense of unease that rippled through the ranks. The great powers that had once ruled the galaxy were now questioning their own safety. Could they trust the systems they had relied on for so long? Were their alliances as strong as they had once believed? And most frightening of all, had they already lost the war without realizing it? The command leaders convened in emergency meetings, but no matter how many strategies they devised, no one could come up with a solution. Earth had already gained too much ground. Its influence was spreading like wildfire, quietly shifting the balance of power, and the galaxy's leaders were powerless to stop it. They had made the grave mistake of thinking that they could control everything, of believing that they were the ultimate authority in the universe. But now, they were starting to see just how wrong they were. In the midst of this chaos, a quiet message from Earth arrived. It wasn't threatening, nor was it demanding. It was simple, almost peaceful, yet it carried an undeniable weight. The time for change has come. It was a message that left the command leaders in a state of uncertainty. What did it mean? What did Earth want? For so long, Earth had been ignored, its voice drowned out by the powerful empires that had ruled the galaxy. But now, it seemed as though Earth was no longer asking for permission. It was demanding recognition. And so the command found itself at a crossroads. They couldn't ignore Earth any longer, but they also couldn't admit that they had been outsmarted by a species they had once considered inferior. There was no easy answer, and no one knew what to do next. Behind the scenes, Earth's leaders continued to work tirelessly. They had one goal in mind: to ensure that their place in the galaxy was no longer in question. They were no longer interested in making demands or pleading for respect. Instead, they quietly built alliances with other planets, small and large, offering them the same vision of a new future, a future where Earth would lead, not with force, but with influence. It wasn't about making the galaxy bend to Earth's will. It was about creating a new order, one where Earth's values and strengths would be the foundation. The rest of the galaxy would have to accept that Earth was no longer a minor player. It had become a central figure in the galaxy's future. As the command struggled to find a solution, a new reality began to set in. Earth wasn't just a threat. It had become an undeniable force that could no longer be ignored. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time, it seemed as though the balance of power was shifting in favor of a planet that had once been laughed at. The Galactic Command had long held the belief that they were untouchable. They had built their power on years of conquest and influence. They had thought they could simply crush any opposition. But now, they were facing a reality they hadn't prepared for. Earth had shown them a different way of thinking, one that didn't rely on overwhelming strength or intimidation, but on patience, strategy, and a deep understanding of the galaxy's fragile systems. The command was left with a bitter truth. They had been so focused on their own dominance that they hadn't seen Earth's true potential. Now they had to face the consequences of their blindness. Earth was here to stay. It was no longer a distant, insignificant planet. It was a power, a presence that would define the future of the galaxy. As Earth continued to make its quiet advances, the galaxy waited, unsure of what would come next. The Galactic Command had no answers. They had no way to predict what Earth's next move would be. And as the galaxy held its breath, one thing became clear: the days of underestimating Earth were over. The galaxy was on the edge of something monumental, and no one could predict what was coming next. The Galactic Command had underestimated Earth for far too long. Now their previous dismissals seemed foolish in the face of the quiet storm that was brewing. Earth's influence had expanded beyond what anyone had imagined. While the great powers scrambled to keep up, Earth remained calm, its leaders more focused than ever on their long-term vision for the galaxy. For years, Earth had remained isolated, content with its small role in the vast expanse of space. But that had changed. Earth's leaders understood that they couldn't just sit and wait any longer. They had the potential to shake the galaxy, not with force, but with something much more powerful: ideas. Earth's values, its way of thinking, had the ability to change the course of history, and they had set their sights on doing just that. The galaxy's great powers had been built on a foundation of control and domination. For centuries, they had ruled with an iron fist, believing that strength and military might were the only things that mattered. But Earth had a different approach. Instead of brute force, they used knowledge, diplomacy, and most importantly, patience. They understood the importance of building relationships, of gaining the trust of others, even if it meant taking small, calculated steps. Earth's leaders knew that they couldn't change everything overnight. They had to work from within, quietly influencing other worlds, forging alliances with those who had been overlooked or dismissed by the more powerful empires. The galaxy was vast, and the number of systems that could be brought into Earth's orbit was growing. But they weren't looking for conquests. They were building a coalition, one based on shared values and mutual respect. Behind the scenes, Earth's diplomats worked tirelessly, meeting with representatives from planets large and small. They offered cooperation, resources, and knowledge. In exchange, they asked for one thing: trust. Trust in the vision of a galaxy where power wasn't concentrated in the hands of a few, but shared among many. And slowly, quietly, planets that had once been ruled by the great empires began to listen. They didn't know if they could fully trust Earth yet, but the humans had shown them something that the old powers could not: respect. The Galactic Command continued to grapple with Earth's growing influence, but no matter how hard they tried to clamp down on this shift, they couldn't stop it. Earth's presence was becoming undeniable. The command issued warnings, sent fleets to try and contain the spread of Earth's ideas, but the humans had already outmaneuvered them. They knew that fighting fire with fire would never work. Instead, Earth focused on showing the galaxy that there was another way, a way that didn't require military dominance. As Earth's message spread, the other races in the galaxy began to take notice. Many had been disillusioned with the old ways, with the constant wars, the manipulation, and the endless pursuit of power. The humans offered a new kind of leadership, one that didn't come from a throne of fear, but from a place of collaboration. It wasn't about domination. It was about unity. The idea that perhaps the galaxy didn't need to be ruled by a few powerful empires, but by many voices working together, began to take hold. The command could feel the shift. They had tried everything to quell Earth's rise, from diplomacy to threats, but it seemed that no matter what they did, Earth's influence only grew. There was something undeniably magnetic about the way the humans carried themselves. They didn't boast. They didn't make promises they couldn't keep. They simply showed up, offered their hand, and let others decide for themselves. It wasn't long before the once immovable powers of the galaxy began to waver. The Galactic Command, once so sure of its strength, began to feel the pressure. Some of the larger empires quietly began to reconsider their stance on Earth. They had seen the disruption Earth caused in their systems, but they had also seen the benefits of cooperation. Earth's new alliances were beginning to show real results. The once skeptical planets were now growing more prosperous, more stable. The command knew they were losing control. They had spent centuries building their empire, and now it felt like it was slipping away. The idea of unity, of a galaxy where no one race dominated the others, was gaining traction. It was a concept that they had always feared, a concept that challenged the very foundation of their power. Earth had proven that even the smallest of players could turn the tide. Yet even as Earth's influence grew, there were those who remained loyal to the old ways. Some of the galaxy's most powerful leaders refused to entertain the idea of equality. They saw Earth's movement as a threat to their dominance, a challenge to everything they had worked for. But despite their resistance, the momentum was shifting. The galaxy was slowly beginning to understand that the old ways of war and conquest were not the only paths forward. And so, Earth continued to move forward, not with the power of military fleets or destructive weapons, but with the quiet strength of ideas, diplomacy, and patience. They had learned that true power didn't lie in control. It lay in the ability to inspire, to lead with humility and vision. And as the galaxy looked on, Earth's place in the future was no longer in question. The command's final attempt to maintain its hold on the galaxy was to issue a decree. No race may ally with Earth. Any system found in cooperation with Earth will face consequences, but Earth wasn't backing down. They didn't need the command's permission. They had already found allies, and with each passing day, their coalition grew stronger. Earth had become a symbol of something new, a galaxy where cooperation and unity were possible. Now, as the command watched helplessly, they realized that Earth had not only changed the way the galaxy operated, they had changed what it meant to be strong. As the galaxy teetered on the brink of change, the Galactic Command's grip on power was finally slipping. The old ways of conquest, control, and domination no longer held the same sway. Earth, once thought of as a mere speck in the vastness of the galaxy, had proven that strength came not just from armies or fleets, but from something far more powerful: unity, cooperation, and ideas that inspired others. The command, now desperate to maintain their authority, had issued edicts that forbade any system from aligning with Earth, but those commands had fallen on deaf ears. Earth had already spread its influence so far, so deep into the fabric of the galaxy, that resistance seemed futile. Leaders from across the stars, many who had once aligned with the powerful empires of the past, now found themselves questioning everything they had been taught about power and leadership. The shift was subtle at first, like a current beneath the surface, but over time it grew undeniable. Earth had become a symbol of something new, something that resonated with every race, every system that had long been oppressed by the old regimes. Earth's message was simple, yet profound. True power lies in unity, in shared purpose, and in understanding, not in dominating others. What made Earth's rise even more extraordinary was that it didn't seek to replace one empire with another. Earth didn't want to be the new ruler of the galaxy. It wanted to help the galaxy find a way to govern itself, a way that could bring everyone into the fold, where no one was above another. It wasn't a revolution fought with weapons or violence. It was a revolution of thought, of a vision that promised a future where cooperation outweighed control. The more the galaxy's leaders saw this vision in action, the more they realized that they were on the brink of something unprecedented. The systems that had once been on the periphery of galactic politics were now thriving, their economies strengthening, their people gaining power and influence for the first time in generations. Earth's alliances had brought prosperity, stability, and peace, where before there had only been exploitation and subjugation. But the Galactic Command wasn't going to relinquish control without a fight. They could feel the old systems crumbling beneath their feet, the foundations of their once unstoppable empire now starting to shake. The idea of a galaxy ruled by cooperation, rather than dominance, was a direct challenge to everything they had stood for. The command was not ready to accept that the future of the galaxy could be shaped by Earth's ideals. In a final act of desperation, the command attempted to call for a summit. They invited Earth's leaders to come and present their vision for the future, hoping to negotiate, hoping to find some way to either slow Earth's rise or bring it under their control. But Earth's response was unexpected. They didn't send an army, nor did they send diplomats with grand speeches. They sent something much simpler, a message. The message was clear, direct, and it resonated with a power that no one had anticipated. The future is no longer about a few holding power over the many. It's about everyone working together. It's about a galaxy where no one is left behind. We are not asking for your permission. We are building the future, and we invite you to join us. The message was broadcast across every system, every planet, and every communication line in the galaxy. It wasn't just a message from Earth. It was a call to action, a call to every species that had ever been left in the shadows of galactic politics, a call to everyone who had ever been told that their voice didn't matter. Earth had become the voice for the voiceless, and in doing so, had created something that no one could ignore. As Earth's influence spread further, the galaxy began to change in ways that no one could have predicted. Systems that had once been beholden to the Galactic Command found themselves standing side by side with Earth, working together toward a shared goal. The Command's attempts to maintain its authority only made Earth's coalition stronger, as more and more systems saw the benefits of unity over division. The key to Earth's success had always been its unwavering belief in cooperation, its belief that the galaxy could be a place where power wasn't concentrated in the hands of a few, but shared among many. And as the galaxy moved toward this new future, Earth's leaders worked tirelessly to build relationships, to ensure that everyone had a seat at the table. The old empires, those that had once ruled with fear, began to realize the truth. They had no more cards to play. They couldn't stop the wave of change, not when it was driven by something as powerful as the collective will of the galaxy's people. The Command, once a beacon of authority and strength, had become a relic of the past, an empire that had failed to adapt to the new reality. It wasn't long before Earth's vision was fully realized. The galaxy had been transformed into a place where cooperation was the norm, where no system was left behind, and where every voice mattered. Earth's leaders, not seeking glory or power, became the architects of this new era, guiding the galaxy into a future that was shaped by shared ideals and collective strength. And so, the galaxy entered a new age, one where Earth had not conquered the stars, but had helped unite them. Earth had not become the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Instead, it had become the heart of a united galaxy, a galaxy where the strength of one was the strength of all, and where the future was built on the ideals of unity, peace, and understanding. The Galactic Command, once the ruler of all, had been rendered irrelevant. The future belonged to those who dared to dream of a different kind of galaxy, one where power was not measured by fleets or weapons, but by the ability to work together. And in that future, Earth stood at the center, not as a ruler, but as a symbol of hope for all.